Thank you for joining us for It's Electrifying, a regional workshop for land care professionals. My name's Trish Glass from the nonprofit Sustainable Wellesley, and I'll be moderating the event tonight, which is co-sponsored by the Town of Lexington, the Wellesley Department of Public Works, Quiet Communities, and the American Green Zone Alliance. Before I introduce our first speaker, I'd like to run through logistics for the evening. We have an exciting program planned. You can find links to the workshop program and a list of speakers at the top of the chat. So we would also ask that when you visit the chat, you sign in and also indicate what town you're from. As advertised in our flyers, we will be raffling off a new electric tool donated generously by Husqvarna in the second half of the program. So the winner must be present at the time of the raffle. So please stay with us. To run an orderly workshop, all participants will be placed on mute. Please post any questions in the chat area. I'll do my best to get to every question, but if we miss yours, feel free to reach out after the event by email. This event is being recorded so that it can be posted and shared with your colleagues and friends, and we urge you to do that to get the word out and broaden our community. We will send you each a link to the video in our follow-up materials. And one last announcement. There will be 2 hands-on equipment demonstrations on Friday, October 2nd, outdoors at Lincoln Park in Lexington. The first session will be from 10 to 11 a.m. and the second will be from 12 to 1. All Massachusetts COVID-19 regulations will be followed, so please bring your mask. Space is limited to 40 people per session, so please register via the link, again, provided in our chat. Again, so just to repeat that, it's an opportunity on Friday morning in Lexington to see some of the great equipment you're gonna see this evening up close and in person in a safe way. And we hope you'll make sure to take advantage of that by registering. And you could do that in the chat, or you can go to our websites following this event. Excuse me. And now to the program. We are thrilled to have with us today a guest who has special interest in the environment and sustainability issues, State Representative Michelle Ciccolo. Michelle represents Lexington and Woburn in the 15th Middlesex District in the Massachusetts House, and will kick off our program. Michelle, we are so happy to have you here with us this evening.
Thank you, Tricia, and thank you to our workshop sponsors, especially the Town of Lexington and Town of Wellesley for all your work in innovating in this area, and Quiet Communities and the Green Zone folks, and of course Jamie Banks, who is really our motivator in so many ways and pulling us all together to do this great work. So I'm really pleased to be here with everyone and just really excited about the topic that we're going to be discussing tonight. You have a long list of speakers, so I'm not going to make long remarks. I will just say that in this day of COVID-19, the noise and public health implications of landscape equipment are very profound, and it's something that has for many years gone ignored by some. But as a representative, I will tell you that I get a lot of calls and complaints from constituents about the noise from landscape equipment and the concern around the emissions. And here in Massachusetts, we have the Global Warming Solutions Act, which was passed in 2008. And that requires a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And very recently, the House of Representatives updated our emission goals to net zero by 2050. So those of you who are following the 2050 roadmap bill that we passed earlier this summer know that it's now even stricter, our emissions guidelines ahead of us. And we are setting interim benchmarks and much stronger requirements to get to that net zero emissions faster. And thank goodness, we really have no time to waste, and each sector is going to have to do its part. And in the past, maybe we could have ignored landscape equipment and just considered that, worried about the transportation and building sectors. But we really need to make sure that absolutely every emitter is addressed and helping us achieve our Global Warming Solution Act requirements and our goals for our environment. I will say that I'm really blessed to have a district that full of activist citizens, and that's one of the reasons why I think Lexington is particularly engaged in some of this work. And we are also very blessed to have tremendous staff at our DPW. Dave Pinsnow, you'll be hearing from soon, along with a number of other staff members, and they really have responded so well to some of the constituents who have led the charge in their interest in this area. Before being elected as representative, I was a member of the select board, and I was working very closely with our noise committee, and Lexington's noise committee is working on local bylaws that they're bringing to town meeting this fall and next spring to begin the process of restricting the use of noisy equipment in our environment. So it's very exciting to see this coming to fruition, and I can't wait to hear all the speakers tonight, and I think you're going to really enjoy the program, and I'm so thrilled to see so many people participating tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for making the time for us this evening and for all you're doing to lead on sustainability in Massachusetts. It's appreciated. I would now like to introduce environmental health scientist Jamie Banks, who is founder and executive director of the nonprofit Quiet Communities and a co-sponsor and the key organizer of this event tonight. Thank you so much, Jamie. Go ahead, Jamie.
She's muted.
Okay, Jamie, you are on mute. Hang on. I will text her.
Jamie, there you go. Now you're off.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I like Michelle. I'm just thrilled at the number of people that have come to this and expressed their interest. And thank you so much for coming on a Wednesday evening after work. I know it's a lot of time, but we really do have a very interesting program. And I'm going to start out and give an overview, touch on some of the things that you're going to hear in more detail as we move through the evening. Before we start, I do want to thank again our hosts, Quiet Communities, my colleagues here, AGSA, the Town of Lexington, Town of Wellesley DPW, and then also Sustainable Wellesley and the Wellesley Natural Resources Commission. The folks there, Tricia and Raina in particular, have been so helpful and supportive in getting this workshop together. Quiet Communities is a national nonprofit organization. We're based in Lincoln, Massachusetts. We actually have a number of programs relating to noise and related pollution. But tonight we're going to be focusing on our Quiet Outdoors program. Our mission is to transition landscape maintenance to low noise, zero emissions practices, all for health and environmental purposes. I'm trained as a healthcare scientist. You'll see my background on the speaker roster. We take as an organization a scientific evidence-based approach to looking at the problem and to recommending solutions. This is just a list of our programs and services and some of our partners. Education outreach, we actually organize research, do our own research, partner with AGSA on its Green Zone program. You're going to hear a lot more about that, including the impact reporting that we do. government procurement programs. You're going to hear from Julia Wolf about work that we did at the state level here in Massachusetts. And then we have communications programs as well. So what we're here tonight to discuss is the impacts of gas-powered landscape maintenance. There is a lot of it out there today. The industry's really grown tremendously, and we now have gas-powered tools to do nearly everything that was once done manually. And in certain neighborhoods, this has become very problematic. What we want to do is move to things that are cleaner, quieter, and more sustainable, and healthier really for workers and for the public. I'm going to start out and just talk about the healthcare exposures from gas equipment. First of all, there's toxic and carcinogenic exhaust. This affects everyone, workers in particular, but also members of the public that happen to be in the vicinity. And it's particularly acute when there are a lot of machines working in a neighborhood. And we often see crews that have multiple blowers, trimmers, edgers, as well as industrial mowers, even on small properties. And this is a real source of complaints in neighborhoods, not only in Massachusetts, but all around the country. We also have things that are coming off the ground. On highways, it can be as toxic as lead from leaded gasoline that was never removed from road shoulders. The noise is a huge problem and has become more so in this time of pandemic. And then for operators, there are the additional exposures of harmful vibration from gas equipment, and also from all the toxic solvents that they're using, fuel and maintenance products. There's two types of gas engines in gas-powered equipment, two-stroke engines, and this really describes the handheld tools that we're used to seeing, leaf blowers, string trimmers, chainsaws, and so forth. And then four-stroke mowers. There's no longer two-stroke mowers. They've really been eliminated through EPA regulations and are much cleaner. And it's really the two-stroke engines that are the most polluting. When we talk about exhaust, there's a number of compounds that come off from burned and unburned fuels. They include what's called volatile organic compounds. These are things that evaporate from gasoline. They include these chemicals: benzene, butadiene, formaldehyde, and acetaldehyde. These are very potent carcinogens. And if you look at a gasoline hazard sheet that's put out by the gasoline industry, you will see all of the kinds of hazards that gasoline emissions and exhaust have, and we'll go into those in a moment. These chemicals, when combined with nitrogen oxides in exhaust, can form ground level ozone in the presence of sunlight, so in warm seasons. And then we have lots of carbon monoxide, which we're used to seeing in indoor environments as toxic, but in certain outdoor environments, this can also become a problem, and in enclosed trucks. And lastly, we have fine particulates. Fine particulates are very small particles that are invisible to the eye, but go down to the molecular level and can lodge deep in our respiratory pathways and move into our bloodstream and cause systemic illness. Now, the issue with this, unlike power plants, traffic, and other things, this is close proximity pollution. It's in our neighborhoods, it's concentrated, it's in close proximity to our airways. Again, especially for workers, children in the vicinity, and other nearby bystanders. Now, this pollution, this is really not on people's radar screen, but it's important to realize that these toxics, especially ozone, the volume of emissions is very large. And because vehicles, trucks, and cars, and so forth, have been cleaned of these emissions through stringent regulations, it's these engines that have been far less regulated that are causing most of the sorts of ozone pollution and other air toxic pollutions that we're experiencing today. And these statements from California Air Resources Board and EPA show just how dramatic the levels of those emissions are. This next slide comes from the American Lung Association. It's about ozone pollution and particle pollution, just what we've been talking about here. The health effects range from respiratory illness to cardiovascular harm, susceptibility to infections, and then other kinds of reproductive developmental harm. That includes autism and even dementia. And then premature death from being exposed to these kinds of pollution. And one thing to mention is that it doesn't take long-term exposure necessarily to have adverse health effects. More and more literature is showing that even short-term exposure to these kinds of pollution can cause serious health consequences. In addition to the exhaust, there's ground source particulates. This is particularly problematic in very dry conditions, and also with blowers that are directing high velocity air jets at the ground. Now, again, it depends on the surface that is being worked on. You know, highway shoulders, perhaps with heavy metals, lawns treated with herbicides, pesticides, tree roots. There's all kinds of things that can come off the ground. And I think looking at this list, we can agree that these are things that are left on the ground than dispersed into the air where we can breathe them in and have them do us harm. And then lastly, with the exhaust, there are greenhouse gas emissions. Now this is, compared to other sources, this is less than 1% of total CO2 emissions. And yet, as Michelle pointed out, it's important that we address every source of greenhouse emissions. The visibility of making a transition to cleaner, more sustainable equipment is something we need to consider. This is really low-hanging fruit. It's something that we can easily do something about, show we can reduce this emissions, and the volume is more than 20 million tons annually. Now for the noise. 85 decibels is the occupational safety standard above which people start to have hearing damage. Now, this is a slide that comes from the National Association of Land Care Professionals, formerly called PLANET. Excuse me. It's a hearing conservation program for workers. And what this is saying is most of the equipment is noisier than the occupational standard, some more than 1,000 times. Now, compared to public health standards, it's many, many more times levels that are safe for either hearing health or general health. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. The other problem with gas equipment noise for many pieces of equipment is that it has a very strong low frequency component or a vibrational component. And this explains why loud noise from these machines carries over long distances. It's low frequency that can travel over long distances and has this very shallow wave structure, as opposed to higher frequencies that have something that looks more like the stock market and dissipates over shorter distances. And because it has that vibrational quality, it can readily penetrate through walls and windows. And this explains why communities are so distressed when equipment is in their neighborhood, because closing the doors and closing the windows really does not offer any relief from that kind of noise. Other worker exposures I mentioned earlier, vibration can cause neurological damage to extremities as well as other health effects, and constant exposure to fuels and solvents, both from inhalation and respiratory effects and solvents that carry through the skin. These are things that can be harmful to health. There's also environmental effects from gas-powered equipment. Every time equipment is refueled, there's some spillage into soil, particularly for small pieces of equipment. I'm sorry, I have a dry spot.
While Jamie takes a pause, I am just going to remind you that if you have questions that you'd like to pose to any of the panelists, just type them in the chat section, and we're going to have 2 Q&A sessions, so we will try to get to all your questions. You're back.
I think I'm back. I'm sorry about that. I had a dry spot.
Understand.
There's 17 million gallons of fuel that are spilled. That's 50% more than what was spilled off the coast of Alaska by the Exxon Valdez. And this is an old number from the 1990s. With all of the gas equipment we have today, it's probably quite a bit more. Now, in addition to fuel, there's also all the maintenance products that are used for gas equipment: degreasers, lubricants, detergents. These come in solid containers that can contain chemical residues. All of it's going into landfills and aquifers. And then, ironically, as we're trying to maintain our landscapes, things like ground level ozone can actually damage plants. According to the USDA, it's one of the main sources of damage to plant health. Noise, toxics in our environment can also have negative effects on wildlife populations, pollinator populations, and as a result, reduce biodiversity in our communities. There's many solutions to this issue: sustainable landscaping, other sorts of things, but we're really here to talk about one of the main solutions, which is technology. Battery electric, robotic equipment. This technology has advanced to the point where today it is possible to do all routine maintenance work with this equipment. And as opposed to the adverse effects, we see all the benefits here that come from using this kind of equipment as opposed to gas. Important components of a transition. This is a wholly different technology than gas technology. It's not just a matter of switching, taking up something new. It's important that people are educated, trained, certified as being competent. There's infrastructure requirements, charging, knowing how to select high quality commercial equipment that can get the job done in a comparable way to gas equipment is very important. Ag's a green zone, you're going to hear much more about when Dan speaks, and impact assessments as a way of communicating progress that's made in reducing air toxics, noise, greenhouse gases, and so forth. We're going to hear from private businesses today about successful business models for fleet development and profiting with electric and people-powered tools, and then the importance of incentives, bulk purchasing and financing programs to help subsidize the upfront expense of going electric. We have in the state of Massachusetts, as a result of action taken by the Operational Services Division in creating the first contract in the nation for battery-powered equipment, commercial grade, workshops that inspired several entities in Massachusetts to make a transition, including DCR, Walden Pond. You'll be hearing from Chris Hoffman, Park Supervisor, the town of Lexington, town of Wellesley, Mass DOT. You'll be hearing from Brian Camden, Supervisor out in Western Mass for Turners Falls Municipal Airport, UMass Lowell, UMass Amherst, and then a number of communities around the country, even in Alabama. So with that, I'll end, excuse me, with this thought.
Thank you, Jamie. Our next guest is Julia Wolf of the Massachusetts Operational Services Division. Julia has been integral in shaping the first state government program specifically for commercial grade battery electric equipment. Thank you for joining us, Julia.
Thank you very much for having me. Really excited to be here today. So I am the Director of Environmental Purchasing for the Operational Services Division. Do you guys have the slides? Didn't. Just wondering.
Can't see them yet, but.
Right. Let's see if Jamie has them. But I just want to thank the towns of Lexington and Wellesley, Quiet Communities, AGSA for inviting me to come and speak today about the battery powered landscape equipment on statewide contract FAC 88. So you can go to next slide. So just a little bit of background about OSD, the Operational Services Division. If you don't already know, we actually establish and manage statewide contracts for 16 categories of products and services. Municipalities are eligible, and we encourage municipalities to use the statewide contracts. We have a robust environmentally preferable products procurement program, or EPP program, and we work to increase the number of products and those using EPPs in our contracts. So with changes in the marketplace for battery powered equipment, due, I think, really in large part to advances with batteries, we partnered with Quiet Communities and AGSA a few years ago to establish the first in the country specs for commercial grade battery powered landscape equipment. And we have recognized this equipment to be equivalent in many areas to give conventional gas-powered equipment, and it offers additional health and environmental benefits as well. So we also conducted 2 trainings and sort of had trade shows, a couple of trade shows, and provided some level of technical assistance to a few of the public entities to help them navigate this transition, as Jamie was talking about. So next slide. So in 2018, we developed the specs with the main goal that this equipment really needs to be comparable in power to their gas counterparts. Otherwise, people wouldn't choose to use them. All the specifications are found in Combis, which is the Commonwealth's online bid and record center. So I've included a link here, which goes actually directly to the master blanket purchase order in Combis, which has all of the specifications and all of the information about the contract. Next slide, please. So we awarded 4 vendors for category 13 on FAC 88 for the commercial grade battery powered landscape equipment. And we're in the process right now of adding additional equipment to this category. So if there are things that you would like to see, different types of equipment that would meet the specs, reach out to the vendors, ask them to add those products to their offerings. So there's also a lot of other landscape equipment on this contract, so I'd encourage you just to take a look at the offerings on the contract. And just to note that municipalities are actually the largest overall user of this particular contract. Next slide. So we also developed a tool that could help in comparing battery powered options to a gas counterpart. And this may be useful to you as you're looking at pricing over time. So I encourage you to check this tool out, which is also located in the Combis master blanket purchase order link that was on the previous slide. Next slide. So this tool can help calculate estimated return on investment, and it provides some estimates in carbon dioxide emissions, which can also be useful if you're trying to measure emission reductions. Next slide. So here are some public entities that, that have transitioned or committed to transitioning to battery-powered landscape equipment. Jamie talked about them as well. We were super excited to work with the 13 of the municipal airports that have received multiple pieces of equipment through DOT's Mass Aeronautics program, and they're using them. UMass Lowell told us that they purchased a few of the ride-on mowers, and their staff love them so much that they would come in early just to be able to sign them out before others got there. So I love that story, but we're starting to hear more and more stories like that. Next slide, please. So here are just some links to additional information and my contact information. And the contract manager is Brendan McHugh. So if you have any particular questions about the contract, I'd recommend reaching out to him, but you can always reach out to me as well. We are here to help and help you sort of navigate trying to find the equipment that you're looking for. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julia. It's very exciting to see how Massachusetts is moving ahead. And it's also great, this video is going to be such a great resource, as you can see with the contact information. So the goal is sort of to create a community here so we can all move forward. Next up is Dan Mabe, President of American Green Zone Alliance, AGZA, who has worked with quiet communities to organize this event. Dan will tell us about AGZA's Certified Green Zone program, training and certification courses, which are transitioning the nation's landscape practices to zero emissions and a low noise approach. Thank you so much, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Trish. And I just want to thank everybody that helped organize this event. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's glad to be back here in Massachusetts and engage with all of you. And again, thank you for all of the participants taking time out of your evening. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to kind of go right into it, if you will. So Jamie, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, the American Green Zone Alliance, otherwise known as AGZA, our mission is to help lower the impacts of the grounds maintenance industry. I do come from the gas industry. I worked in this industry since I was very, very young. And I used to have a gas business. And so when I present to you, it's through the lens of a former gas operator. AGZA has 3 primary programs to help transition to these lower impacts that I'm going to describe in slides that we're going to see in a couple minutes here. Now, one is our Green Zone certification. That is property transition. I want to congratulate David Pinsino and the town of Lexington for basically getting their first AGZA certified green zone over the finish line. And that has been done with quiet communities and our ELF impact reporting and inventory reports that are generated with these projects. The second thing we do is we do professional certification for crews, getting in there with the actual operators, their managers, and not only just showing them the equipment and, hey, you press this button. No, there's a lot more to it if you want to do a successful, long-lasting transition that basically will last in perpetuity. And then the third thing we do is our AFTC certification. AFTC is AGZA Field Tested Certified, and that is for tool platforms. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're not heavy on the impact slides because Jamie went into a lot of those impacts, but the slides that we're making, again, are from a person who's worked in this industry and with gas tools for a large portion of my life. Of course, at the top, we see the noise in the middle and the emissions on the top left, but I can tell you the vibration that you see there, I experienced numbness in both of my hands from operating gas tools for so many years. And then, of course, on the bottom, there's the toxic and solid waste components. And then, of course, the maintenance frequency of gas is much more frequent than electric, and therefore the expense over time is going to be much greater than their electric counterparts. Next slide, please. Okay, so this, real quick, Jamie, this is an actual video of a 2-stroke hedge trimmer operating at a school during school hours. Jamie, do you have the audio for that? Yeah, you're going to turn the audio up on the right-hand side.
Jamie, when you go to share your screen, there's a box at the bottom that you have to click that says share sound as well. And if you do that, then you should be able to share the audio as well.
Yeah, and again, these are all new, these types of presentations, but if we can get the audio, you can really understand what the noise profile is in real life. And if it's too difficult, we can basically move on to the next slides, Jamie.
Let's move on, Dan. We can always post it in the
Sure.
chat or come back to it. It's
Sure. Jamie, if you can bring the presentation back up.
Can you see this, Dan?
I can.
Okay. Do you want to try the video?
Sure. We can try the parking lot tune-up.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, so basically this parking lot tune-up video is something that I used to do when I owned my gas business. And basically what we're filming here is a gardener who extends the life of his filters, his spark plugs, by basically washing his parts in clean gasoline. And then afterwards, there's really nowhere to dump it. So, you know, he admits, and it's something that I'm not proud of, but I used to dump it in the ground in the bushes. So it speaks to some of the slides that Jamie had presented previously, what the impacts are of gas equipment cradle to grave throughout their lifetime. And when you use the electric instead of the gas, it really does eliminate a substantial amount of those impacts. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've done a lot of field studies where we shadow gardeners. This study was done shadowing 10 gardeners from Southern California and basically tracking what they use as far as two-stroke oil, regular oil, all of the different products that go, again, into maintaining a small gas engine cradle to grave. And here are some of those numbers that just one gardener can create just maintaining their gas equipment on their routes. And this is going to be an annual total, if you will. But when you multiply this by the 30,000 gardeners operating just in LA County, you can see that it can become quite substantial. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some of the solutions. AGSA Green Zone certification. This is again where we transition property. The minimal requirements for Green Zone certification is phasing out two-stroke equipment. It is the more egregious creator of pollution and noise most of the time. Some of the green zones have gone farther and eliminated basically all gas tools for routine maintenance. There are workloads where it's just not economically feasible and workload feasible to transition to gas. And but for the most part, routine maintenance makes up for about 90% of all of the impacts in grounds maintenance operations we find. Next slide, please. Okay, so that was the nation's first, well, the world's first perhaps, but it was very well received. There was city council, mayor, we actually had some members of Congress and actually a senator present to support the certification. Next slide, please. Okay, so how did we do it? We took one section of the city, Garfield Park, and we started there. Once that was successful, we were able to make an action plan with the city to green zone the entire city. All of the properties that you see on the left were basically inventoried with Jamie and the ELF reporting software. And we were able to systematically, over just a year, convert the entire city off of this initial conversion of this park. And we really do suggest that all municipalities follow this model because it's a gradual, prudent model, and it really does help with coinciding with budgetary cycles, and it really does make sense to train all of the crews gradually, if you will. Next slide, please. Okay, so after that, we were able to do the golf course in the city. This is a par 3 course, but we were able to reduce the carbon emissions overall by 70% at this golf course. The greens mower that you see there, it was initially it was an electric mower, but it had lead acid technology, which is not the lithium that we see today. So I just want to give you an update. We converted this mower to lithium, and I'll show you with what cells. Next slide, please. These are actually repurposed Tesla Model 3 cells. So we were able to build out some packs and convert it to lithium, and ever since we did, there have been no issues with that mower. Next slide, please. Okay, here on the East Coast, of course, yes, Quiet Community, so instrumental. I see Lucy Weinstein that is attending tonight. Thank you, Lucy, for also being a part of making this project happen. We're very happy that and proud that this was the first AGSA certified green zone on the East Coast. We did East Quogue Village Green and Town Hall. Next slide. Okay, so it's very important that people just don't buy tools, or municipalities don't buy tools and advertise, hey, we're using some electric. We really do encourage this communicating progress of ELF, environmental landscape footprint. And here's just a snapshot of what ELF looks like. And it really is instrumental in helping initially to understand what your gas fleet is doing, and then you're able to strategically go to the hot spots and start to make changes in those hot spots. And then gradually you're going to, of course, with the previous model, the South Pasadena model, be able to expand this footprint, if you will, to encompass the entire operations. Next slide. Okay, so this is what Southampton actually did. They were able to really understand overall how much impacts their operations were generating, and out of the certification and the impact reporting, they actually passed legislation that all of their handheld tools will not be 4-stroke, they will not be 2-stroke, they're actually all electric. Okay, lithium battery technology definitely has been a game changer for this industry. Back in the day when I had my all-electric business back in 2007, I was using stuff with cords, lead acid, nickel cadmium equipment. Now that lithium is here, I wish I had this technology back then, but basically it's not just the lithium cells, it's the PCU boards, it's the battery management systems and the advanced circuitry that help bring this chorus of engineering to help these tools rival their gas counterparts. Okay, so basically, here's the simplicity of an electric tool. Literally, there's a battery system, there's a controller, and there's a motor that is going to propel fans, blades, and string and oscillate blades. Compare this to a typical gas engine, which has so many more parts. Therefore, you can understand why it requires so much more maintenance over its lifetime. Okay, let's go into AGSA AFTC approved equipment. Just before we move ahead, we really want to be clear that AGSA is brand neutral. We encourage people to use electric and any electric that they feel comfortable with to achieve their personal goals. Let's go back, Jamie. With that being said, though, again, to help protect the consumers out there and not make tens of thousands of dollars in investments, which we've seen early on, we had to develop AFTC because we saw procurements of $20, $30, $50, $60,000 where it didn't work out. So we have a very strong field testing program, and these are the manufacturers that saw the value to go through it. Husqvarna was one of them with their 40-volt line. It's very impressive. What is not pictured there is an auto mower, which we'll be featuring later when we do the show of the equipment we have behind us. Next slide. Ego. Ego, initially, we were using a lot of their residential rated tools in commercial situations. They came out with their commercial line, and they're the first manufacturer that have both platforms AFTC certified. That's because their residential stuff had proven to do so well in commercial situations. Oregon is more of a newcomer, certainly though on the market, but we've been dealing with them for over 4 years. They brought this line out to us as prototypes for testing. They did their homework, and it is a very robust line, very high quality, and we encourage everybody to check this 120 volt line out. And then steel, we go back almost 9 years. Their AP line featured here was used to create the first commercial AGSA green zone at the Malibu Country Mart. I can say that on the very bottom right, that blower, that BGA 85, there's 3 of them that are nearly 9 years old, and they're still functioning. They are taped up, they're beat up, but they are still functioning. But that's just a testament to some of the quality and engineering that steel has produced. And then for the larger mower platforms, it is Mean Green. I was a customer of Mean Green and initially, and of course, their product speaks for itself. They now have a 74-inch that is on the market. This is an older slide that says coming, but we may have a Mean Green out there on Friday from Casons. But we definitely encourage everybody to look at what they have, and I think you're going to be very pleasantly surprised with the quality, the performance, and actually durability of all these tools, because we've tested them and put them through, through some tough situations. Okay, cost of operations and profitability. Okay, so we're just using a couple of quick examples here. Again, that's a little bit older slide. You have this mean green that is nearly twice as much as this X-mark. X-mark is a very common gas ZTR that we run into at a lot of our projects. So the national average, you'll find different sources, but you know, we know that it's anywhere from $5 to $7.50 an hour to operate, depending on what region of the country you are and where that cost of gas is. Depending on how much you pay per kilowatt hour, it's gonna range from 50 to 70 cents an hour. And basically, you're just gonna do the simple math on your operating hours, and then you can calculate what your savings per year is going to be with just basically powering the mower, gas versus electric, and then the maintenance, the maintenance involved by changing a component or a motor for the electric, or maintaining and doing tune-ups on the internal combustion. Okay, over time, and we've seen this, we'll go to places, we'll start projects, we'll see SCAGs, we'll see hustlers that are over 10 years old and running quite well. They've taken great care of them. But when you look at this 10-year graph, at the top, you see the 94,000. This is a 10-year graph of the worst case scenario. It's an older mower. It's not really fuel efficient. It's probably not fuel injected. But over its lifetime, operations can spend nearly $100,000 on one ZTR, on a 10-year chart here. Best case scenario is the lowest cost for gas. It's well maintained, it's fuel injection, and you can spend up to $45,000. For the electric counterparts, you can see over a 10-year period of time, just paying for kilowatt hours and electricity, and then changing components, you're gonna look at that range as substantially lower. Okay, so for backpack blowers, we have great relationships with a lot of the manufacturers who manufacture gas and electric. We are privy to fuel burn rates of a lot of the top models out there. When you factor in adding two-stroke oil into gas, shaking it up, creating the mix for a two-stroke operation, not only, like we mentioned, it's very toxic, but it's also more expensive. We have an average here, what we feel is a safe average at $1.45 an hour to operate the most industrial models on the market, two-stroke blowers. And then their electric counterparts can operate anywhere from 18 to 25 cents an hour, of course, depending on the kilowatt hour cost. And then again, you plug in your hours, and this gives you an idea of what those savings are going to be over time. And then you can calculate when your ROI is going to be. And that does it for tonight's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions later on. And then if you're going to be coming to Friday's tool demonstration, then I can really give you a lot more details about the equipment from a third party independent view with the reps there as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks for your work educating us and really in getting results. It's inspiring. Dan will be back later in the program to lead the equipment demonstration, and he'll also be leading the live sessions on Friday. We're gonna leave questions until the end. We do ask if you haven't signed in to do that in the chat area again, just wanna remind people. And now I'm just going to move along in the program. The next panelists will describe to you how they lead by example in the public sector. Let's begin with Lexington DPW Director Dave Pinsino, who through his initiative to transition to an electric fleet in Lexington is leading municipalities in the state. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thank you. So I'll talk a little bit about how we got the program started in Lexington. It was really, we worked with the Select Board and the Sustainability Committee. We worked on a number of initiatives, and one of the ones they really asked us to look at was electric equipment. It was newer to the market. We have a very active noise committee as well. So we wanted to look at different things that we could do. As a municipality, we weren't all that familiar with this process or what we needed to do to get started. So we partnered with Quiet Communities and AGSA to do that. And you saw some of the slides, the impact assessment, what we would need to do to transition to electric equipment, and then go for that certification program. So one thing I want to stress is we are, I think as Dan mentioned, we are doing this in stages. So we didn't just junk all of our gas-powered equipment and jump into electric. We wanted to make sure that it worked for what we were doing, that we had the right equipment in place, and we had staff buy-in for that equipment. So we really worked with our public grounds staff, worked on how we could transition some of our equipment from gas-powered to electric, really looked at those two-stroke engines. And really from the employee standpoint, it was all about safety and environmental factors for them as a worker. And you've seen some of those displayed already in other presentations. So what we did is we looked at properties that we thought we could transition this to, or where it would make sense. And we looked at our downtown corridor. So it has our town hall, our library, Cary Hall, which is a kind of like an events building. So a lot of places where noise really comes into play, where there's a lot of contact with the public as we're out doing our tasks during the day. So looking at those properties and identifying these would be places where this electric equipment would help. One of the biggest things that we did too is we were part of hosting that workshop here. So we did get to see some of that equipment, but we worked with Dan and AGSA. We had equipment manufacturers come out to us to demo some of this equipment, because again, I didn't want to just purchase any old electric equipment and say, here you go, staff, now use it. We really wanted them to get comfortable with it. So they tested things with backpacks, without backpacks, different weights to string trimmers and things like that. So really got the buy-in from our staff. We're a union environment, so getting that buy-in was crucial to us. Once we looked at that equipment, we went ahead and purchased it. We didn't need to do OSD at that time just because of the cost, but we did have a grant that we had from one of the utility companies that we were able to put towards purchasing that initial equipment that we had. So one of the things we looked at that was a very easy switch for us was changing out all of our string trimmers from gas powered to the electric battery powered. And that's worked out great for us. We have, I think, 8 of them that we use regularly in the course of our operations. We have battery backups. They pretty much will last the day for the crew that's out there. So that has worked out very well for us. In that process, we also ended up, we went with one company and model, and our guys were having some issues. So we looked at a different one, we demoed another one, and we've actually switched to a different manufacturer now. So, and the crew seems to be very happy with that switch. We also introduced the handheld blowers. So we've got that introduced into the mix. And again, with the blowers for us, we were looking at anywhere from May to about October, end of September, beginning of October, where using the electric blower to get grass clippings on a sidewalk or minor debris works very well for us, and there's no reason not to do it. We do use the gas powered in the early spring and the late fall for that heavy leaf cleanup. So we're still working on those things, but it's really, again, doing this in stages. One of the things that we did, and we actually just secured the purchase order for us, we took advantage of, as Julie mentioned, the OSD contract, FAC 88. So we're purchasing 2 of the Green Machine mowers. And again, we're going to implement those into our downtown area and into that crew. So another electric option for us to perform our tasks in that area. The other thing that we're doing is we're working with MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, on a technical assistant grant. So I've sent requests to some other municipalities for support in that, and it's really to help get grant programs for the equipment, look at education, and if you go to the next slide, Jamie, I think, well, I must have missed putting a slide in, but it's really, we're looking at bulk purchasing, potentially setting up a tool barn for municipalities to use, and the education and training component, which I think are key pieces to that. So this is just a highlight again of that downtown area that I mentioned. If you go to the next one, Jamie. Oh, I think we went backwards. Yep. So again, this is just some of the equipment. This is at our town hall complex. We've got a police station, as I mentioned, the events building, and the town hall. So we have electric mowers, push mowers, next one. We've gone with the electric string trimmers, and we've gone with the electric blowers again into our operation. So if you go to the next one, Jamie. And then this machine is actually now going to be replaced with an electric mower. So we've got that on order. It probably won't make it for this season, but come spring, we'll be able to do all electric equipment for the maintenance of all of these properties that are in our downtown area. So if you go to the next slide. So this is one that Dan had before. As I mentioned, we partnered. We had a detailed report on this to do, you know, a number of things really. Educate us, educate the town on what the difference was between the gas and the electric. Some of the areas where we could recognize not only cost savings, but environmental benefits and noise benefits, both to our staff and the public. So we found that a very helpful tool, that report, that we could then apply in order to help us get some of this equipment and start implementing the program. So if you go to the next slide. So what we're doing moving on, and again, as Dan mentioned, we're starting out with the town hall complex. We would like to now bring the AGSA over to where our historic area is, the Battle Green, the Visitors Center, the Buckman Tavern. We have a small park area in the center that we want to expand into. We have our library. So those are some of the areas that we'll be working with to expand that electric corridor through town of using this equipment. We are purchasing that larger electric mower. We're researching some other equipment that we could potentially swap out. So we have our forestry staff. They're demoing different chainsaws from different manufacturers to see what may or may not work. So there's some of those other things that we're looking at, what we can add to our equipment maintenance and our grounds maintenance program. Again, that we have buy-in from our staff, and it's going to do the right job for us. So again, we're looking at MAPC, working with them to try to get this grant program going, and really to take that lead. One of the things we looked at is if we're going to be asking residents, and if we're going to be asking landscapers and contractors to start thinking about this and doing it, as a town, if we weren't doing this program, it would be harder to make that ask. So we wanted to take the lead in that, put our foot forward and say, hey, we're able to do this in stages. We've been able to implement it here. This is working for us. This didn't work for us. How that all factors in, we're recognizing savings. The crew likes using that equipment. They're already seeing some of those benefits, not having to haul around the mixed fuel cans, not getting a lot of that particulate not getting the fumes, not getting the noise. So, you know, we wanted to make sure that we were doing our part, that now we can ask other people to, hey, if we can implement it, you know, there's ways or things that you can do as well. So we want to see that continue to move forward for Lexington. So that's what I had. So I will turn it over to the next panelist.
Thank you so much, Dave. And, you know, thanks for serving as a resource too. I'm sure you're going to be hearing from some other towns, you know, who are looking for, again, what has worked and what hasn't worked and how to move forward. So next, we are grateful to have Wellesley DPW Director Dave Cohen with us to talk about the town of Wellesley and progress there. Thank you so much, Dave. Dave, you may be on mute. I can't.
I am on mute. Thank you, Trish.
Okay, great.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Cohen, DPW Director for Town of Wellesley. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Town of Wellesley and the Board of Public Works and all the dedicated, talented men and women that manage and maintain our properties in town. Tonight, I'm going to give you a brief overview of our Park and Treat program, a snapshot of some of the equipment we use, our experience with battery-powered equipment so far, and then our planned next steps. The bottom line for us is that the switch to battery-powered equipment, at least for some of our equipment, is very doable. And based on what we just heard from Lexington, making the switch may not be as hard as we once thought. The map you see here shows our maintenance zones throughout the town, which is about 10 square miles in area. Next slide. So here's some statistics to give a sense of our maintenance responsibilities. As you can see, we have about 640 acres of passive areas, including walking paths, parks, and conservation areas. We also have about 255 acres of recreation areas, including playing fields, playgrounds, courts, and the town's pond and beach areas. And in addition, we maintain 6,000 public shade trees, and in partnership with the town's Natural Resources Commission, we plant about 100 trees each year. And we also maintain other areas, including municipal parking lots and over 60 landscape traffic islands. Next slide. To take care of all that, we have a staff of 17 landscape and tree care professionals, and they use a wide variety of equipment to get the job done on a daily basis. Our equipment includes, our roster includes 18 blowers, 35 trimmers, and 25 chainsaws. We have lots of other equipment to get the job done, but for the purpose of our electrification initiatives, we're first focusing on these units. And as we just heard Dave mention, we think these are the low-hanging fruit for us to be able to move into the battery-powered equipment. Next slide. So about a year ago, we dipped our toes into the water. We purchased our first battery-powered units. And here you can see a couple pictures of our horticultural technician, Wally Caban, demonstrating a couple of the units that we purchased last year. And although some of our folks are looking forward to trying more equipment, there are others who are still skeptical. The concerns that I hear most frequently are related to durability and battery life needed to get the job done. And I'm really encouraged by what I've been hearing tonight. And part of the reason why we wanted to participate was for us to learn what can be done. And so really good information coming our way. So some of the key feedback and takeaways from our sort of pilot tests so far. In general, we found that the battery-powered units are lighter and quieter than our similar gas-powered units. In our experience, a fully charged battery will make it through a full typical day with intermittent use. If you use it continuously, you'd probably get 45 minutes to an hour before needing a recharge, but that's not typically the way we would use our equipment. And as I mentioned, our test units are quieter and lighter than the similar gas-powered units, and overall received really positive feedback. And as I mentioned before, the biggest concerns for us are the durability, reliability, and being heavy duty enough to get the job done. Next slide. So for us, the next steps to help move this initiative forward We've included an item in our FY22 budget to help accelerate purchase of replacement equipment, along with chargers and batteries that might be needed. As I mentioned, we're first focusing on line trimmers, blowers, and saws. These units should be relatively easy to start integrating into our equipment fleet. We're also keeping an eye out for advancements with bigger equipment. It was good to see some of the larger pieces of equipment there. That's something we've got our eye on for future steps. And we're really interested to demo units and see what's available. And then finally, we're taking a look at the feasibility of establishing green zones to further promote the use of cleaner, quieter equipment for landscape maintenance. This kind of initiative can help raise more awareness for the topic, and it can also help us stretch out of our comfort zone and help us make our community a healthier place to be. In the meantime, we remain open to new advancements. We're looking forward to the new technology that will come down the road. Overall, what we're finding is that the experience of transitioning to battery-powered equipment, maybe it's not so shocking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And I like that headline, it's not so shocking. And now I would like to introduce Chris Hoffman. He's the Parks, actually before I do this, I just want to make a plug for the raffle at the end of this program. I hope you'll stay on. I'm gonna draw out of a hat and someone will win a piece of equipment. So it will be wonderful to have a crowd. So now I will introduce Chris Hoffman. He's the Parks Supervisor of Walden Pond for the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation. Chris will talk about how he has led the department in transitioning to battery-powered landscaping equipment. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. Just want to thank the town of Lexington and Wellesley and Quiet Communities for putting this together tonight. Just want to make sure you guys can hear me. It looks like you can. So last year I was approached by Julia at OSD and Jamie at Quiet Communities to think about transitioning Walden to battery-powered landscaping equipment. So I met with Jamie and we went over kind of all the equipment we have, and it was, you know, the mowers, weed whackers, blowers, and we started talking about what we can purchase to transition at Walden. So just to back up a little bit, Walden Pond is part of the Department of Conservation and Recreation, which is the state park system in Massachusetts. We own and manage a wide variety of properties everywhere, from parkways, which have a lot of maintenance, to forests and swimming pools and things like that. But I think they thought about Walden because we have a new LEED certified visitor center that has a solar array that generates 100,000 kilowatts of electric power per year. So it was kind of an easy fit. Also, Walden Pond is home to the writer and philosopher Henry David Thoreau, who is an environmental leader and someone that we can kind of point to in today's climate, but also just he was ahead of his time in terms of American environmentalism. So we actually got a budget from the Department of Conservation. Stephen Brown in Planning and Engineering, he's on tonight. Thank you, Stephen, because he actually awarded me with a budget to purchase some of the equipment. And with that money, we bought a mean green mower and 4 weed whackers. 2 of them are the Oregon 120 volt weed whackers, and 2 of them are steel FS90s. And the mean green mower we went with is a Stalker, which is the stand-on walk behind mower. We also purchased 2 backpack blowers, which are the Oregon 120 volt as well. And I just want to say, working with both Mean Green and Oregon has been great. The representatives from the companies are easy to coordinate with, and we've had some minor issues with some of the batteries and chargers, but they're all under warranty and they've replaced those pretty immediately. And just want to kind of point out that, so Walden doesn't have a huge area for grass, but we have been adding turf areas with the new visitor center and the mean green mower, the weed whackers. I basically do all the area in electric landscaping equipment. There's the mean green stand-on mower right there. The Oregon 120 volt weed whacker at the top left, and the Oregon 120 volt backpack blower. Those are some steps that lead you down to Walden Pond. And my staff, first of all, love the equipment. It's easy to use. And like Dan may have said from AGSA, just the noise benefits for the employee and the vibrational benefits, I mean, they're kind of outstanding. And like the visitors as well, I mean, it's a lot easier to kind of stop the equipment. So say you're running a traditional 2-stroke backpack blower, when you stop using it, it still idles. So there's still a noise element if someone's walking by. With an electric blower or weed whacker, when you're not using the throttle, there's no noise at all. So it goes from 100 to 0, so to speak. And I think in that sense, it's a lot kind of easier to stop and let people kind of go by. But also another thing that I've noticed when we're using the weed whackers or the blowers on the road, you don't need as much hearing protection. Therefore, you're safer. So I can hear a car coming, or I can hear someone walking by me when I'm using them, and I can, keep myself safe or stop using the equipment. So that's another added benefit that I kind of found on my own. And I don't want to keep it, I'll keep it brief since we have other speakers, but that's kind of the overall, that's the equipment I'm using. We have other pieces of equipment. I have a steel MS-161 top-handled chainsaw, which is great for pruning, and it's a climbing saw, and we've used it that way. And Oregon has let us kind of demo other equipment, a pole saw and a push mower, and I'm happy to kind of keep with this trend and buy more equipment. But right now, what we have is working really well, and I can do most of the areas, if not all, for regular routine maintenance with battery powered equipment. And my staff, some of them are hesitant, but the ones who, once you use the equipment, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. There's no exhaust there. It's easy to use. You don't have to pull to start. And charging a battery versus fueling up, it's almost easier. And we have kind of a community that the people that work with me, we're all on the same page in terms of our environmental stewardship. So it's not that hard to get my staff to want to use the equipment. So I hope that made sense. Thank you guys for having me.
Chris, that is great. And I also just like the image of you using quiet equipment in a quiet place and being able to kind of hear what's happening around you while you work. And next we have Brian Camden, who's the supervisor of Turner Falls Municipal Airport grounds, all 347 acres, who is leading the charge in his area by promoting alternative landscape equipment use in Massachusetts with the help of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this evening, and I appreciate everybody hanging in there as we run a little long. So over the last couple of years, Mass Aeronautics, a division of Mass DOT, has really worked with a handful of airports in the state to make that transition from gas-powered to battery-powered equipment. And we were fortunate enough to receive some assistance and some directive from them to make that. So we've eliminated our gas-powered zero-turn mowers, which handle roughly about half the mowing that we do. We've also replaced most of our small hand tools with the commercial works electric 82 volt system. Obviously, there is some concern going from the traditional gas-powered to the battery-powered equipment. However, we found them to be very, very useful, very productive. So we are, as far as airports go, we are kind of the median for Massachusetts. We're not large, we're not small, we're right in between. So this has been a good base point to get some good information on, is this equipment feasible to use in a facility such as ours? So we have roughly 190 acres that we maintain on an annual basis. That means mowing weekly during the summertime, not this year, but we usually weekly mowing, weed whacking, cleaning up debris. So the equipment gets a very good workout. It's not quite what you see with a commercial landscaping operation, but it still puts us through its paces. We've had a lot of good feedback from our operators, which are also part-time high school students through a vocational training program. The pros to the equipment have been the limited vibration, the limited noise. It also makes it a lot easier to put somebody with a piece of equipment and train them how to properly use it when you don't have to scream over the sound of the engine. So that's been a huge benefit for us. On top of the switch to the electric powered equipment, we've also built, once again with the assistance of Aeronautics Division, a solar carport canopy, which will pretty much offset 100% of our electricity cost. That combined with the reduction in gas and oil purchases and whatnot, we're seeing a significant reduction in our overall budget, which is nice. So it's definitely a work in progress. I don't know if any other airports have fully tackled the carbon neutral aspect, but we're getting there a little at a time. I think we've had some good luck, and we're going to continue on with it.
Great, thank you, Brian. And we are a touch behind on schedule, but we can make up for it because I'll just eliminate the last Q&A session. You guys are sort of posing questions in the chat and people are answering them. So let's just continue that while we hear from next panelists. Now we're going to hear from a few business owners who will share their experiences about making the transition to electric lawn care equipment in the private sector. First, I'd like to welcome George Corrett, who's the owner of Eco Quiet Lawn Care in Concord, Mass. Thanks, George.
Hey there. So my name is George Corrett, and I'm the owner and operator and founder of Eco Quiet Lawn Care. So I guess we can go to the next slide. So I started this back in 2014. The business is actually embarrassingly called George's Wicked Lawn and Garden at the time. Changed that pretty quick. And basically we were electric from the start. I had a small gas push mower, but I've always had electric weed whackers, chainsaws, everything that are really big polluters. And once the business got off the ground, as you can see, I purchased that truck right there and the 33-inch mower from some investments I made during college. And I got this thing off the ground at basically 22. Next slide. So the thing that really drew me to this was Concord went and banned water bottles. And I thought this was a perfect business to really get into. And the biggest thing that I've seen that's really great about it is that people want you in large densities. So once you get a client, the neighbor wants you as a client, and the next neighbor wants you as a client. And you get you basically take away one of the biggest profit sucking principles of landscaping for residential, the driving in between. If you can line up 10 mows right there, you are golden, and you're in a great area for profit. But expanding outwards and having 20 minutes of driving time, you still got to pay employees, you still got to pay everybody, and that has been a really great thing. So next slide. So yeah, so basically our profits, especially for most things, I'm going to talk about gross profit margins because I shovel everything back into the business right now to grow it. So typically when I send 2 guys out, we mow about $1,000 of lawns in 8 hours. And that's big lawns, small lawns, and different things. And usually it comes out to about 40 to 60% profit. And a lot of landscapers have told me that mowing in general is not a very good way to profit, but we've made it almost our bread and butter with 130 clients, and I don't want to get out of it, so we must be doing something right. The small lawns are really good too because we can be really price competitive. The only thing we try to charge a little bit more on is the fall cleanups because our blowers are a little less powerful. But at the same time, there was a time where I was completely price competitive, but not enough people have gotten into this. So I realized that I could raise my prices a little bit and still people would still buy it. 25% seemed a reasonable price. And from there, basically it was a no-brainer and I could grow my company even more. Next slide. These are the towns we service. Some of them we're just getting into. We tripled our revenue this year, and it was absolutely great. Even with coronavirus and everything, things grew like crazy. And yeah, so these are the towns we service now. Next slide. So like I said, biggest misconception, I guess, with electric is that it's hard to grow an electric landscaping company. But really what I found is hard to keep up with all the customers that you will get. I've never had any point where I've really had to search for customers. We've done so little marketing, it's insane. And we always have more people wanting business than we can really provide. So like I said, we tripled our business, but there's still plenty of people we just could not service because we couldn't build capacity fast enough. Even with tripling our revenue, I went from having essentially maybe 1.5 employees last year. Now we have 7. So it's really about just build your infrastructure fast because people really want this. Next slide. So like Dan has talked about, there are some challenges with this type of tool. You really want to try to go with one brand of tool for your big hitters. So like your leaf blowers are the things that are consuming most of your battery, I found. So you really want to have one tool that's centered around a good leaf blower for landscaping. And that will allow you to have all your batteries set up in racks and other things, and then your guys can take them, be set in the morning, and get up and go there. I would also say that sometimes what I hear from people is they try to go and do things with too little batteries. I try to have enough batteries for about 3 days of use. I'm actually very heavy on that, but I've never lost money in a year while aggressively growing it. So I think it's better to have your employees completely prepared, have a lot of batteries, have a lot of equipment, and then they're not complaining about, oh, I didn't have enough batteries to get through the day. They're just slapping a new one in there and going. And that's how things can work better. One thing is too, now that we're in this different warehouse that you'll see later, it's a lot easier, but you have to have a proper electric grid to go and do all this. We generate a lot of, we go and take a lot of electricity in, and we're actually upgrading all of our systems for next year because of how much electricity we're taking. This place, this warehouse in particular, isn't used to it, so we have a lot of upgrades to make. It's not a lot of money, but it'll make it a lot easier. And like I said, it's slightly less power than gas tools. Mostly with the blower, everything else is pretty equivalent. So it's not a real problem when you get to not spending any money on marketing, or essentially none. So I think it's still worth it. And I haven't seen that much of a problem. One thing we do, we use leaf plows and other things like that to make up for the lack of leaf blower. So leaf blower power. So it's really about just being creative around the situation and don't rely on the leaf blower like it's attached to your arm. So yeah, and yeah, those are some of the leaf blowers and mowers and hedge trimmers we have and the different tools we have. And like I said, they've been very good in general. It's really nice not having to do maintenance. We have some gas pieces of equipment, and that's like aerators, other things like that for treatments. And I really hate them because they're incredibly finicky. You have to do all these things to them. And I was electric from the start. So every time I touch a piece of gas equipment, I want them to make an electric one because it's so annoying. It's so finicky, and I don't like changing oil. So next slide. So this is like something that should, I believe, help people in the future, is the rise of electric trucks. So the biggest problem is sometimes you have all these batteries that you have to charge overnight and everything like that. But what an electric truck would allow you to do is basically have a 200 or 300 kilowatt hour bank right there that you can just slap a battery in from using it, charge it in the back. And I think it will streamline this industry incredibly. We've already pre-ordered 2 Tesla Cybertrucks, and we're going to do another one as well. So I think these small things will just make usability for electric tools in a residential sense incredibly easy and productive. So thank you very much, and great for the next speaker.
Thanks so much, George, and for being a pioneer. I look forward to seeing the truck when that lands. And next is Priscilla Hutt-Williams, the founder of Pumpkin Brook Organic Gardening in Shirley, Mass.
Hey, thank you, everybody. I'm coming to this from a little bit different angle than most of you. I've been in business since 2001, and we, for years, used only hand tools, completely quiet, brooms, rakes, shovels, hose, etc. And we have built ourselves up to 150 clients along the Route 2 corridor between Lexington and Harvard. Basically, we go up and down that road to get to everybody. And and I've been involved in the NOFA organic land care program since I started the business. I was one of the people who helped develop those standards for organic land care, and we've had them in our business from the get-go. We've been in all organic business, and we work with trees, shrubs, perennials, annuals, and vegetables. We don't do lawn work. And I found in the beginning that most clients had a lawn service. So I am not a mechanically oriented person, did not want to get into that and did not want to invest in it. So I didn't. We had plenty, and we still do have plenty of work with the hand tools. But around about, I think, 2014, 15, at New England Grows, I saw the electric equipment and was intrigued by it. I thought this goes perfectly with our organic mission to create beauty and do it with organic materials. Why not be quiet as well and safe? So I did buy the electric blower, had some staff quite skeptical, but had an excellent reaction from clients. We started using it at clients who don't really have lawn. It's all plants. They might have a little pathway of wood chips or something. And they had trouble finding someone to take care of their property who would understand it, because really you couldn't roll a mower through there. Couldn't even really roll a blower through there, except maybe in fall. But the first client where we used the blower, the electric blower, said, "Oh, it's like a little vacuum cleaner. It's no louder than a vacuum cleaner." And I said, "Yes, and it's just perfect for your place." So it's kind of rolled out from there. We now have 5 electric blowers. And I am interested in finding an electric leaf shredder because we have a gas-powered one. And I would love to not have that. I would love to have electric. But we encourage people to close the loop and keep the leaves on their property, to shred them and to use them as mulch on garden beds, particularly in a woodland setting. It's very appropriate and very, very beautiful. And they do break down and enrich the soil. And they're certainly abundant for a lot of people. So instead of sucking them up and taking them away, we'd like to leave them there. So that's the horizon I am looking toward. We do have some other gas-powered equipment, but it's used very sparingly, mostly for installation projects like a sod cutter. I bought it in 2007. We still have the original one, and it went for its first servicing this year, believe it or not. We use it so little. even though it's a gas-powered piece of equipment. And we have a couple of chainsaws and a few things like that. But again, they are not used that much. So I still really feel as though I have that operating philosophy of the hand tools. On many days, we do only have the hand tools going. But as we move into fall, and of course we have an early leaf drop this year, the blowers are going to be back out, and we have found them useful on banks of mass plantings that catch leaves like cotoneaster. We find them useful for cleaning up after a big pruning project where you have all kinds of small twigs on the ground. It's a very quick cleanup, or you have a hard surface like surround around a pool where you've just done some pruning and you need to clean up. These are good places where we use our electric blowers. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's talk and also to the electric demonstration on Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phyllis. Priscilla, I appreciate your insight. My colleague is Phyllis, so
That's okay.
sorry. And now I would like to introduce Joe Langton, who's the owner of the Langton Group in Woodstock, Illinois.
Hello, everyone. First, I want to thank Dan and Jamie for inviting me to spend my time in great company tonight. So I appreciate that. Just to say real quick, I own Langton Group Landscaping, which is the company that puts these out. One of the things with the slide, you're going to see a lot with AOS, which is the company that really focuses on the battery and electric with the robotic lawnmowers. Got a franchising opportunity that's turned out from this. We are looking to go national. And lastly, I have a podcast called Automating Success Show that I do with my daughter. And it's really special to me that I do that because she's 20 and the younger people really embrace this technology. And one of the things in our industry that seems to be lacking, there's really not a lot of women in this industry, especially when it comes to grounds maintenance. And I believe that outdoor automation is going to really change that. So anyway, so to the slides now that I have. So this is right off our website. We started working with Dan at AGSA because we found that we really wanted to start to have a third party verifying the amount of carbon footprint reduction we had going. It's part of our marketing program, and it's part of what we offer other landscapers in the industry by working with automated outdoor solutions. Being a landscaper myself, we have 290 employees in peak season. And one of the things that keeps us from expanding our market share is the lack of people that want to do landscaping. Point blank, our high schools are not kicking or educating kids and telling them to leave school and go sit on a lawnmower. This is just not happening anymore, especially in the private sector. So we started calculating what we've saved. So far, we're over 100,000 pounds of carbon reduction with the landscapers we're working with and my own landscape company. If you want to go to the next slide. So, this is what I'm finding. When I'm talking to landscapers, my goal and vision is to convert their current book of business to robotic. So what we do is we identify that the customer is expecting clean cut lawns without thatch weekly. The consumer is price driven, but they always demand quality. It's going to keep the commercial contractor from achieving what will keep it: employee attendance issues, rain, operational backlogs, breakdowns, fluctuations in fuel cost, and travel time. What the last speaker just brought up, traveling from site to site. What we found is by providing stationary robotics that we leave at the customer's house in an extended service agreement, this takes care of a lot of those issues. To put it bluntly, I'm putting clones out on every piece of property that is always there. So the future gives the consumers what they expect while helping the contractor overcome all the above obstacles. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I found that we deal with in the private sector is in backlogs, environmental pressure, right? So one of the things that I've always hated hearing is when I hear people say their landscapers are unreliable. If I get a call and somebody wants to replace their landscaper and I ask them why, they say they're unreliable. I ask why, and they typically tell me, well, my mow day is on a Thursday, but they show up on a Saturday, and that really upsets me. I actually end up probably helping that contractor keep the account when I explain to them that if it rains on a Monday and a Tuesday and commercial contractors have to mow 5 days a week, that only gives us 2 days to make up time. Typically, I do a better job apparently than others when I explain this to my customer. But what auto mowers do is they mow in the rain. There's no travel time. There's no fluctuations in fuel costs. They don't clump. There's not any emissions. And like I said before, they're scalable clones. One of the things that I've always said when I get fired by a customer, because every business gets let go, I explain to them that if I could clone 50 of me, they likely would not fire me. Well, now I say 200 of me because I have more employees. When I first got into robotics, this is important to know, my brother was not, I own the company with my brother, John. He was not in it like I was. And we went to the customers that let us go and asked if I put a robot out on their property, if they would be willing to try us out again, because it was a clone. They tried it, and those are customers in long-term service agreements with us now. Next slide, please. So, you know, one of the things that I like to bring up is pricing structure for the commercial contractor. So, you know, typical pricing for us in the Chicago market, like I said, I'm Northern Illinois, we have about a 100-mile radius, is $40 to $50 per acre. That's going to include their weekly line trimming. We're running on 28 to 30 mows a year. The one thing that ends up happening is in those service contracts, we don't have the ability to charge, you know, guys, excuse me, for some reason my dog is trying to get in and he's just whining at the door. I just, hold on 1 second, I'm sorry. I really apologize, but it was distracting me so badly. I apologize. So one of the things that I like to talk to contractors about, and honestly, with all the government municipal stuff on here, it's something that I think you'll all appreciate when you're thinking about robotic mowing, is during the rainy season, grass grows much quicker. And what we find is to get rid of those clumps or to eliminate the need for taking the grass away is we mow 2 or 3 times. The customer, it just expects the clumps to be gone. So we're over mowing. This is increasing to additional carbon footprint. We're spending more gas, more time, spewing more emissions into the air. So I'll answer that question later. So anyways, so multiple mowings during the rating season, we don't have to do. Customer complaints from clumping goes away. Customers complaining in the dry season, asking for mowing credits. We don't have to do that anymore because the robot stays on site. And usually with commercial contracts, we only had a 1-year agreement. So I'd have to spend a lot of time and money to have us renew yearly contracts. With the use of robotic lawn mowers, we can eliminate that because we are leaving the mower with the customer in a service agreement. So with the new, you can kind of see the bullet point just to move through faster. All we do with us is if somebody wants to do something or do this model, we basically set up in a 4-year agreement. And if, as long as they don't cancel, they just pay us monthly. If they cancel, we do charge them the installation charge because the wire stays in the ground with the customer. Next slide, please. So why AOS and not direct to the manufacturer? So we specialize in battery equipment. We have Husqvarna, Ambrosio, Left Hand Robotics, Swazi. We even have robotic field stripers now that are all electric. They can stripe a football field in 22 minutes. So this is what we're passionate about. This is what we specialize in. So we install everything that we sell. Robotic lawnmowers do need to get installed. We train people if they want to do their own installs. We can rent cable layers and ship them out. We offer loaner auto mowers. So auto mowers are meant to mow daily. So if a mower goes down, you can't wait a week to fix it. So we offer loaners to our customers. We monitor your fleet for additional charge. So there's fleet monitoring on all of these. They're all GPS, so we can basically tell you where your mower is at any given time. We offer extended warranties. We help people get the financing, and we also are the warranty repair service provider for those manufacturers. So I see all the people on the call that are using that equipment. We have the ability to service all that Husqvarna battery equipment that I see on there. That's what makes us different. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I always like to talk about is people are always thinking that by us doing robotics, we're killing jobs. And I actually think that's so opposite. This is an emerging market, so we're actually creating jobs. We're creating robotic lawn mowing technicians. Those technicians maintain the mowers, they monitor the fleets, and sorry, there's some weird feedback. But anyways, I call it the grass ceiling. It helps people in the private sector that are stuck at a lower wage from moving up. Now they move into a technology sector. And that's it. If you want to go to the next slide. So these pictures I'm showing are actually pictures from our first green zone that we got with Dan and Jamie. We got 29 acres in Woodstock, combined 3 sites that we do. This is at a commercial site. This is the Husqvarna 4-wheel drive unit. How we do this with robotic lawnmowers is we zone everything out. So this unit will do 0.9 acres. So all we do is we take a Google overhead map and we zone out the mowers. This particular location has 10 of these robots. If you want to scroll to the next slide. This is actually at one of our HOAs. So this is when we're talking about the quiet factor. Robotic lawnmowers are only 58 decibels. This community absolutely loves their robotic lawnmowers. When we're working at HOAs like this, there's people that work all hours of the day, night shifts, weekends. So they come to their property, it's mowed every day. So the grass is never over, in this case, 2 and 3/4 inches. I think we keep it at. Every day it's mowed quietly. They charge for 2 hours, or run for 2 hours, charge for 1, and they just do that in a continuous cycle. Next slide. As you can see, this is another picture of the 4-wheel drive unit. We basically size the units and we figure out what degree of slope. So that unit there can mow a 70-degree slope. Any of these municipal people on this call, if you have any hills that are difficult to mow, I urge you to try the 4-wheel drive robotic electric lawnmowers. Next slide. This is something that we developed on our own. So I actually went to college for small circuit and analysis, electrical, and I just have flourished as a business owner. But I came up with this solar solution that's 275 watt solar panels with 3 sealed gel batteries and sine wave inverter. It's pretty simple, but that setup runs 2 robots completely off grid. I'm not plugging into anything. I don't need any power source. When I set these up, I can set those solar panels out and the mower's out mowing. It can be cloudy for 4 days, and I have enough storage in those 2 boxes that you kind of see in the background to run a mower for 4 days. If it's cloudy for more than 4 days, of course, I lose the mower, but typically I've not seen it cloudy for more than 5 days in Illinois. And it's something to be said, Illinois is one of the worst spots, and NASA confirms this, for solar energy. It's cloudy here a lot, more than people even realize. I think like Washington, they make it sound like it rains there all the time to keep people from moving, but I can tell you it's cloudy in Illinois a lot more than people think, and those solar systems work. And then I don't know if that's the last slide. Is there one more? So this is just another example. That's a high cut unit. The high cuts can mow up to 3.6 inches. Like I said, we carry all sorts of robots, but I have to tell you, I really believe in the Husqvarnas. We have 150 of them. I believe we might have one of the largest robotic fleets in the country right now that's just unadvertised. But they're almost all Husqvarna, and we absolutely love our Husqvarna automowers. Is there another slide after this? No, so that's it. So that's what I have for everybody. Like I said, I'm ecstatic to be a part of this. All of my green zones, I am using battery equipment. One thing I do want to comment on, especially for the speaker that was just on about the Tesla trucks, we actually charge all of our battery equipment from site to site using an inverter and taking the power that the vehicle makes and just converting it from 12 volts to 110 volts. With the quick chargers, typically we can charge while driving from site to site and always have charged batteries on the trailers. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Joe. Interesting to hear about that technology and to imagine, you know, what our town greens will look like in the future. And now I think instead of taking questions as planned, we'll let you pose questions, you know, either in the chat, continuing to do that, or post workshop. We're going to go to Dan for the demonstrations, and right after that, I promise we'll do the raffle for the piece of equipment. So Dan.
Okay, all right, we're back, and I'm here with George Koretz at his shop. It is getting late. We're basically going to do a visual introduction of some of the tools that George uses and then others that are used in green zones. Whatever is not here, I want to let all the reps know and everybody know that, of course, we're going to be at Lincoln Park in Lexington on Friday. We hope you will attend because there'll be a full spread there for everybody to see. So George, if you can help me out here. George is going to follow me around. Okay, let's come over here. We're going to start with Mean Green mowers. These are the bigger platforms. What you see here is a stand-on 48 mower. And we want you to know, like, this one is in repair, but it's not the batteries or the motors or the controllers that's in repair. This is just standard deck repair, if you will. And that is wear and tear that you would experience with a gas or an electric piece of equipment. I really want you to look close here because this thing is being used. This is not some flashy model that we had brought in that's brand new and pristine. We know how many hours are being put on it, and you can see that it gets very robust and heavy duty use. So we just really wanted to stress that. If we can just pan this way, here's another model that's not currently in repair, and it's another stand-on 48. We will have possibly a 60-inch ZTR on Friday, but this is the biggest mower I believe you have, right, George?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so if we can pan this way, it's good that Joe just spoke, because here we have this auto mower from Husqvarna. I picked this up yesterday to bring here for tonight. And I have to tell you, AGSA has vetted this technology. We have installs at a school system that we've done green zoning on their high school campuses. We have installs at that green zone project and also USC. I can tell you that it's great for augmenting current operations. And then actually now we're starting to see that it's proving to do a little bit more than that. So we're going to continue on with Joe from AOS and our other projects, and we're really excited to see how far this incredible technology, which is not new, Europe has had it so long, but it's newer to us. All right, let's pan this way here.
There's companies in Mass using those, Dan, just so you know. There are landscaping companies in Massachusetts using them, just so you know.
Oh, great.
Automated mowers. Yeah, my friend works for one, yeah.
Great, thank you for that information. And you know what, Chris, if you can give us any contacts, we would like to contact them and ask them about their experience, because as you know, AGSA has to see for ourselves what this equipment does, but we also aggregate information from all over the country and add on to that and use that as reference. So please, I think we're connected by email. If not, I'll get it from Jamie, but I would like them to see what their experience is. Over here, we want to thank the Steel rep for coming out today and setting up this display. It will also be there on the 2nd. Again, Steel, we've had a relationship with them for almost a decade now. Here are some of the new and exciting tools from Steel. This is their new BGA 200 blower, and this thing interfaces with this new AR3000L backpack battery. There's over 40 amp hours. Now, I will tell you it is 22 pounds, but it's comparable to some of the gas blowers that are on the market. One of the things that, again, Dave mentioned earlier is, okay, so are you willing to wear the backpack? Some of the tools here have to be operated dedicated with the backpack, but we also know that Steel has a belt system, which actually, and you see this little carrying case. This protects your investment quite well. I thought it was very clever for Steel to come up with this. But you can put the smaller batteries on a side belt and then operate these with smaller batteries to make the weight less on the operator. I'm going to mention this one right here before we move on. This is the FSA 130R. I know that, Chris, you mentioned you have the FSA 90s, and they're good. But this thing, we've actually out west, you know, we have fires. It's actually nice to come over here and get some fresh air. But we put a 105 gauge line in this tool right here, and we're actually doing some brush clearing, fire brush clearing in California with it. I'll say that it's, you know, it's beastly. I can just describe it as that. And again, we're very excited for people to come and really see these tools and actually use them on Friday. Okay, let's pan over this way. This is a homeowner unit from Ego. It's a dual port right here for extra runtime, meaning a battery goes here. Now, Ego never said that this is commercial, but I can tell you, I'll give you an example. Our biggest green zone to date is Westside Union School District in Antelope Valley. It's 132 acres of serviceable area. And they chose this mower to replace all of their Honda 21-inch walk-behinds. Now, with this certification, we really imparted the information and behavior modification, if you will, of how to take care of this. But, you know, their residential line has been implemented and verified in situational commercial application. And it definitely is something that could and should be considered if the workload fits the ruggedness of the unit. And again, the training really goes a long way. All of the manufacturers tell us wherever we conduct our projects, there's less aftermarket issues with the tools, and we lend another level of support for our green zone clients, if you will. And then lastly over here, you're going to see some of the commercial stuff. The backpack batteries are very popular with a lot of the lines, and I'm going to give you an example. And I call it the umbilical cord, okay? So you throw this on. Okay. You basically just plug in. And you're going. Now, there are other models, like Oregon has their backpack blower, and Husqvarna does, where it's more like a gas design. It's not the umbilical cord. We call this the umbilical cord. there's different preferences. You might have crew members that like this. Some of the feedback that we get from the umbilical cord style that Steel has and Ego has is they can go from hand to hand and they can be more nimble when putting things in a pile. And again, the technology is actually creating new techniques. Literally, it's evolving real time right in front of us. And then George, I think you are big. This is George's. This is oh. That was a no-no. I'll put this back on here. But the stuff is pretty tough, actually.
I don't know if it's patented, but Oregon has like a little magnetic square for that.
Love that. And by the way, we asked Joe to get some of the tools here, and he just couldn't in time. But you know, we had that because that's so nifty. But here's this little handheld. It's a 650 CFM, and George, I know that they can't see you because you're holding the monitor for me, but can you comment on this?
Yeah, that's been one of the top blowers that we've been actually using and everything. It's nice that they accept small batteries as well, because it's been especially great with like garden bed crews and other things. It's powerful enough to pick up mulch and other things like that, or deal with like slightly frozen leaves. It's just one of the new tier of leaf blowers that really started to come out around last year, that are around 21, 22 newtons. And this is what I think commercial operators need to really get going. Because I think the stats on this, it's 185 mile an hour, 650 CFM. And that is actually to the point where a lot of 4-stroke engines are blowers are less powerful than that. So this is a point where gas is actually worse.
Well, thank you for that. And you know, what's interesting is, yes, they love their Oregon backpack blowers, Chris, but Oregon doesn't have a handheld device like this one. So I think that's why he went with Ego on this one. I can say that our Green Zone golf course does use a combination of these handhelds and the BGA 100 blower with the backpack battery.
Is that Ego?
It is.
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Yes, and that stuff will be there on Friday as well. So again, we're entirely brand neutral. We know that it's, you know, a lot of people say, hey, it's great to be in one platform, and it is, but the majority of our projects actually have at a minimum of 2 different platforms. So, you know, there's a lot of different gas tools, and there's preferences in the gas world, and I don't think it's any different with the electric. We do recommend that keeping it to a total of 2 different platforms for uniformity and charging infrastructure when you're setting it up. But besides that, I think there's something for everybody here. And again, we really look forward to Friday so you can interact with the reps, and then we'll also be giving you our third-party independent X's and O's on this. And I just want to let everybody know AGS is accessible. You can email us, you can call us, and we will give you impartial information on what the tools are actually doing as far as run times and things like that. And I think it's getting pretty late, and I think we should wrap it up there. But if there's any immediate questions that we're going to do, we'd be more than happy to take some of those.
Dan, we so appreciate your expertise and your enthusiasm. It's amazing to get a look from afar, and hopefully people will take advantage and come out on Friday. Will you just quickly describe what the raffle prize is?
I am so sorry. Thank you for reminding me. It's a Husqvarna extended articulating hedge trimmer, and it has a 300 battery with a charger. It is a commercial system. That system is being used in 3 of our certified green zones. It's a very nimble, very quiet, very capable system. And again, we want to thank Jaime, who's the rep for Husqvarna, for donating it. And I'm very excited for someone to get their hands on this.
Okay, well, I put your names in this Red Sox baseball cap, and I'm going to pick someone out, and I'll read the name, and then if you could just type your name in the chat so we know you're here, that would be great. And it is...
Drum roll.
Mike Garrity. Is he here? Is he here? Okay, I'm moving on to the next one. Barbara Yeager. Okay. Are you seeing anything in the chat, Raina? I'll just pick one more name.
I don't worry about it.
Nicholas Klein. Okay. Wait, I think we have a winner.
I think Nick's here. Yeah.
Terrific. So Nicholas Klein is the winner, and Nicholas, you can reach out, in the chat, and we'll make sure you connect to your new piece of equipment. Congratulations. And now I'm just going to turn things back over to Jamie for some closing remarks, but thank you all. Great workshop.
Thank you.
Jamie. Jamie, make sure you're off mute.
Yes, I'm unmuted now.
Okay, great.
Okay, let me just... Well, first I want to thank everybody that is still on this call for hanging in there. It's not so easy to run a workshop like this, an extended workshop, and have it go smoothly, but I think this one went relatively well, and we're not too far over our deadline. I just wanted to leave everybody with some closing remarks. It's always nice to have some thoughts and things to do before we leave. So as has been mentioned multiple times, Demo Day is on Friday in Lexington at Lincoln Park. If you have not received a link to register for Demo Day, please enter your name and email in the chat. We'd be happy to send it to you. Again, all COVID regulations will be followed. Bring your mask if you intend to come. You can invite staff to that event as well. The MAPC Technical Assistant Grant request. We are asking community DPWs for support in the Boston metropolitan area. This is absolutely no obligation. It's a letter of support template that Dave Pinsino has and can send out, and it simply asks you to support the concept of a tool barn, a training program, and a bulk purchasing program for the kinds of equipment that you're seeing here. The other thing is that we'd like people to be aware that as the year progresses, we think first of the year, there's going to be an online professional certification course, additional workshop training, specialty workshops, and so forth. So keep an eye out for those. And we would love for people to be part of a regional group, helping to make Massachusetts a leader and New England a leader in this. One thing I did not show on my presentations was all of the emissions that are being produced within our state from gas-powered lawn and garden equipment. And if we really do get something going here, we could make some very, very substantial improvements in air toxics as well as greenhouse gases. And then again, whether it's MAPC or it's other private arrangements, supporting, asking for bulk purchasing arrangements, education and training, and other kinds of financial incentives that can help landscapers, agencies better afford this more expensive equipment. Battery prices are coming down, but it is still more costly than gas, and it's over time that you see that return on investment and ultimate savings. So getting some help in the upfront investment is important. And with that, again, thank you to everybody. We're so excited that so many of you were able to join, and please do stay in touch, and we hope to see you on Friday. So have a good night and look forward to that.
Good night,
And
all.
Trish,